Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Transformers G.I. Joe from Dreamwave Productions. Last time, a squad of Joes was dropped on the Fera Islands to infiltrate the Cobra base and try and stop their Decepticon-backed aggression on Europe. Some of them make friends with the awakened Autobots, while Snake Eyes got his face all messed up and then burned himself to stop the bleeding. Now he faces his old pal Storm Shadow and the feral cassette, Ravage. The cover sees Cobra Commander on some kind of stone throne, like he's posing for a photo with gun mode Megatron, looking a little different from his classic Walther design, while Baroness eyes the weapon, and Destro stands with a dagger in his hand and malice in his eyes. Their version of rock, paper, scissors doesn't have much replay value, if you ask me. We begin with the second strike team, consisting of Lady J, Grunt, Flint, Lifeline, Breaker, and Beachhead, awaiting a signal from their comrades. Still no signal. Rome wasn't burnt in a day, Lady J. Yes, the ancient empire was known for its impeccable fire safety protocols. Like the old saying goes, only you can prevent Roman fires. They spot some enemy planes, which turn out to be the Decepticon aerial attack squad known as the Seekers, transforming and taking off. This really doesn't look good, and Breaker wants to call in the fleet, but their orders are to wait until the enemy communications and defenses have been taken down. Monsters or no monsters? They're not monsters. They're machines, Flint. War machines. I want one. So she wants to hijack one of them? Maybe they're trying to make her really battle-hungry or something, perhaps somewhat enthralled by destructive power, so long as it's toward the enemy, though that kind of reminds me of the fight frenzy of one Jake Rockwell from the Centurions comic last year, and that is not a flattering comparison. Meanwhile, Stalker, who I remind is still wounded from previous issues, is walking alone, snarking to a few enemy corpses that he's supposed to be a point man, not a one-man cleanup crew. He stops to gawk at the remnants of a 10-foot-thick wall, wondering who had the artillery to destroy it, when a Cobra soldier aims a rifle at him and orders him to die.
You like being dead.
That's what they said about being alive!
Stalker ducks out of the way as the bullets fly, lecturing to shoot first, then mouth off, as he hurls a grenade, which explodes as the enemy shouts, "No!"
No! No, 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 no! Well, yes.
You got a point there. Ain't going to be a next time for you. Well, this is comics. That guy could have a devoted fanbase that'll insist on his revival in a few months. Then Stalker, I guess, fires on an enemy plane overhead. The sound effects seem to indicate as much, but visually it's not clear what's going on in the panel. Those sounds could be coming from anywhere. Anyway, the aerial bots, heroic counterparts to the Seekers, suddenly appear behind the Joe, warning him to get out of the way. Amazing how these 5-story robots can just sneak up on you like that, huh? Duke and the rest of the first strike team arrive. Feels rather sudden without a proper establishing panel, and Stalker says they lost Snake Eyes. Duke isn't believing it until he actually sees a body. And even then, once again, this is comics. Scarlet is concerned over the ninja's disappearance, but Bumblebee points out that Stalker was lost too, so Snake will probably show up. Oh, and remember how we saw that one Autobot plane go after the Seekers? Turns out that, off-panel, the Aerial Bots team have forced the cons back. I mean, who would want to see a World War II dogfight between two alien robot aircraft? I mean, really! Though there are paratroopers dropping in the Joes will have to deal with, and B suggests the Autobots help their human friends out. And even though we've seen one bullet bounce off that Scout's chassis, Scarlet reminds them the Joes aren't bulletproof, and they're taking heavy fire. I'm not saying it has to rain bullets or anything, but maybe showing more than one would help emphasize the threat she's talking about. And because this page didn't start awkwardly enough, it ends more so, as we're in the Terrordrome on the next page. Really felt like we'd stay with our heroes at least a couple more panels, but whatever. Megatron is threatening several Cobra goons as they begin transporting Energon onto a submarine.
If a single Energon cube is left behind, I'll crush you all into a quivering mass of meat.
And that's why Megatron's chain of fast food burger restaurants was shut down by the health department. Cobra Commander doesn't take too kindly to the bot ordering his men and usurping the sub. They're allies, but not equals, as Drape Base notes, threatening to teach him not to defy Cobra's might and majesty, as a cannon is aimed at the Decepticon, and Megs promptly punches the weapon, causing it and its operators to fall way, way down, as he feels their partnership has run its course. Baroness threatens him with an explosive armor-piercing round in his beautiful eyes, and Meg says she would have made a good Decepticon with spirit like that. Yep, two icons of 1980s animated evil, the Baroness and Megatron, are flirting.
Well, that's sicker than usual.
Red alert! Code 10 fan shipping in progress. Repeat, red alert! Abandon ship! Please abandon this ship! At least now we finally know why the intergalactic tyrant hasn't turned his associates into smears beneath his metal feet, as the commander uses the Matrix to induce pain on the Decepticon leader. He'd previously lied, saying it was a mere symbol of authority with no real power, but Double C has discovered the truth, and warns the machine not to lie or rebel again.
Destiny is cruel, but I am crueler.
Crueler isn't a word.
That's it, I'm selling you to Michael Bay.
We go to Snake Eyes fighting Ravage, while Storm Shadow basically repeats what he said last issue about the bot not being very merciful. The beast is not a beast, yet it lives. Snake Eyes would later have some horrifying reactions when seeing the Big Mouth Billy Bass toy. But Snake narrates to himself how his rivals' talk of mercy again shames their clan's teachings, specifically that a warrior requires no mercy from their enemy and shows none, as he, does something with a knife, maybe cutting some of Ravage's wires, then dropping a grenade. Then he's on a cliff, even though he was falling before, and takes out some enemy soldiers trying to sneak up on him. Again, I'm not saying the art is bad, but moments like this are difficult to get invested in when you can barely see what's going on with all the darkness and weird panel progression. He finally tussles with Storm Shadow one-on-one, and it isn't much better. You can barely tell where one fighter begins and the other ends, but Snake manages to knock some of the wind out of his clan brother. But he just mocks him as he runs away, claiming his allies have made him weak as he goes to a machine gun, only to be followed by yet another grenade. Then, kaboom! The next page, at first I couldn't tell this was supposed to be Zartan and Soundwave underwater, but later pages kinda clued me in. While Flint is willing to take the explosion as their signal, Breaker is approached by a knife-wielding Zartan.
You're no one, and now I'm you.
Oh, so you'll be paying the alimony to my ex-wife from now on. Cool!
Okay, now you're you, I'm me.
I'm me?
Hey, don't jerk me around, fella.
This was apparently far enough away from his squad mates that no one notices Zartan take his place, returning to Flint, who orders him to radio in and get the plan moving. While the real Breaker lies lifeless nearby, Zartan blames the heat for making him feel not himself, and asks to be reminded what the plan is. Fine, Wait, why do you smell like murder and evil? Roadblock and Grimlock are sending some Cobra goons packing, allegedly, but one in particular admonishes how weak the soldiers are. And as his square dialogue would indicate, he's not exactly human. The issue ends with the revelation that it's actually the Decepticon cassette, Rumble, using his hammer arms to shake up the ground and send this other Autobot that just appeared tank up into the air. Issue 4's cover has a couple flag-waving Cobra goons beset by Roadblock poking out of the tank portion of the crouching Grimlock, though it makes it look like he's got a turtle shell with a cannon in it. Hey, Grimlock evolved into Blastoise! I'm no Pokemon fan, but I figured I'd take a chance with that joke anyway. Flint is chewing out Breaker, saying he just needs to call in the fleet, which he starts doing, though he needs to be reminded of the frequency. And upon closer inspection, Flint notices that the radio he's using is not theirs. Ours doesn't have a strip of masking tape that says property of Tomax and Zaymot. What's going on here? The commander tells Lady J, Beachhead, Lifeline, and Grunt to take the airfield while he contends with the imposter, whose face has just changed between panels. Nothing being taken off or whatever.
I'm no one. Empty. But I call this face Zartan. When I show it.
When asked where Breaker is,
there is no Breaker. Just a face. Covered in sand.
His dialogue reads like a depressed teenager at a coffeehouse poetry slam. Flint starts body slamming him for information, saying that if he doesn't talk, he'll be handed over to Beachhead. I guess after he helps take the airfield like he was just ordered to. Zartan, however, has heard and seen enough of Flint to mimic him, so he says, and has Soundwave restrain the Joe, though saying he'll need to be kept intact for both Zartan and the Baroness. The Joes spot the giant tape player, and one of them throws a smokescreen as the bot opens fire. Zartan says they have their battle plan in Flint's noggin, and they fly off. Despite Flint's capture, they still have a mission that Beachhead keeps them focused on. There doesn't seem to be any security at the airfield, and they'll need the radio in the tower, where Beach will be headed himself to try and call in the fleet. If that goes south, Plan B will be Lady J taking a nearby plane, which I guess they're just hoping won't turn into a giant murder bot. Honestly, that'd be my biggest concern with this plan. The son of a Beach also changes the code from Alpha Run to Omega Run, because their squad leader's been taken. Jay points out that he trained Flint and should know Cobra won't get him to talk, but Beach just repeats the new code and takes off. We go back to Rumble, whose tremors are destabilizing the ground, and lifting Grimlock into the air, I guess.
Take that, physics.
Bumblebee, whose alt mode is now a motorcycle, tells Scarlet that Rumble is a mean one, possibly because he's small and not too smart. She hops on, insisting on taking control.
Don't tell me you've never been driven before. That's so sweet.
Phrasing?
B then takes umbrage with the sarcastic notion he and Rumble are friends. The only one that likes him is his brother Frenzy, but he gets cut off.
Hush, baby. Save your revs.
Phrasing.
After a couple likely intentional mispronunciations of the enemy's name, Scarlet drives over him.
You afraid of heights, Crumble?
Heights? Are you crazy? Now Sharkticon's crawling up the toilet. That's a legitimate fear.
She drops a grenade on him, and I guess he's never seen one before, because he just stares at it confused until it explodes and seems to at least obliterate his arms, if not outright killing him. After they land and B is changed into robot mode, he tells Scarlet she's amazing and can drive him anytime.
Hey, phrasing!
Why do I get the feeling someone is writing out some very weird imaginary adventures with their 80s action figures from when they were a kid? Meanwhile, outside the innuendo, Grimlock is hanging on the edge of a cliff, urging Roadblock to get to safety. He'll try to hold on long enough for his friend before he loses his grip. And in a really cool moment, Roadblock enters Drill Sergeant mode.
We don't try around here, soldier. Do you hear me? We don't try and we don't quit. Now reach. Grab that dirt. You are a lean, mean, climbing machine. And you are going nowhere but up. Sound off. I want to hear you say it. Me, Grimlock, going up!
And sure enough, that motivates the Dino Tank to ascend. Sure, the stability of the rock would be a factor, and that it hasn't given in to the weight of an alien robot may feel as convenient as the solidarity these two suddenly developed off-panel, but it's a nice scene nevertheless. Fortunately, Grim does lose his grip, either because the ground couldn't take his weight anymore, or a hand servo gave out. As they begin falling, Roadblock wants him to understand he wasn't yelling out of anger, and that his metal buddy did his best, and that's all a man can do. All a man can do. Since you're a machine, you should spend your last moments of life feeling nothing but shame and disappointment in yourself. Fortunately, the aerial bots combine to form Superion, and catch the pair just in time. Not that we've seen how high up they were, or if they were over a water hazard or something, so not as tense as it could have been. Duke figures that with their Autobot allies, they don't need to wait for the fleet to arrive. But Leatherneck, maybe, who can tell? He wonders what if they'd met the merged bots on the battlefield, but not on their side. I don't know. Hope I at least get out one really good Windows XP joke before it gets a chance to squash me. About a mile northward, Storm Shadow tries getting the jump on Snake Eyes with a javelin, but the disfigured ninja evades it and takes his foe over the edge of the cliff with him, narrating that this will be the end of Shadow's treachery, lies, and hate.
No, Storm Shadow, I am not your prey.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
As they hit the water, Snake continues that he'd left the Arashikage clan to spare Stormy any shame, but in return, his foe took his voice, his face, and his future, apparently involving Scarlet. Now, with nothing left to be taken, save one thing that isn't stated, Snake laments that once they were brothers, friends, as a nearby shark starts snacking on Shadow. I don't know, I can't see any of my friends leaving me to be torn to shreds by a predator of the sea. Now my brothers, on the other hand... Starscream is in the Terrordrome, the only Decepticon not gathered outside the village. Perhaps a sign, as Destro points out, that Megatron doesn't trust him, and Scream snarks back that Chromeface betrayed his leader for a woman.
Did you come here for power, Starscream, or an opportunity to flaunt your childish ego?
I don't see why it can't be both. It's just so much easier not having to choose one or the other.
It's revealed that they were the ones who provided the Americans with the map that led the Joes to the Fera Islands, leading to the awakening of the Autobots as they planned. It also seems that the number of Decepticons loyal to Megs and Cobra Commander's Imperial Guard have both been seriously diminished.
And the ultimate battle between our enemies, and their mutual attrition, is about to begin.
It's all ominous and dramatic until he reveals that he just booked both sides to appear on the Great British Bake Off. They've prepared a weapon, one that Destro has made combining Cybertronian tech and his own talents for destruction, an entity with no will beyond his and Starscream's, and is assured invincible against their leader's remaining forces and even the Matrix. That weapon is Bruticus. It was going to be called Destro Jr., but Starscream won the coin toss. Beachhead is skulking in the control tower when he's surprised and attacked by Frenzy. The Joe's best idea is to pull a wire from the voltage box as the Decepticon taunts how he enjoys fighting humans for their capacity for pain, which Autobots don't have. As the two clash, Lady J sees a flash in the tower, figuring that even if Beach made it out of there, the radio is probably fragged. As previously ordered, she takes to the air, and the issue ends with her being followed by an agent of Cobra.
A paradise picnic for a hungry wild weasel. Chicken on the grill.
Now that's just ludicrous. Everyone knows that weasels in the wild much prefer honey ham cooked in a rotisserie oven. Interesting turn of events that Destro and Starscream have worked together to plot behind their leaders' backs, though not terribly surprising, especially for the Seeker, though it does seem to have relied a lot on luck, that the Joes would somehow be able to not only find but reactivate the Autobots, that only certain subordinates would be sent out and subsequently fall, which could potentially be explained as them knowing Megs and the Commander well enough to anticipate their behavior. Though I didn't much care for the pacing. Maybe it's because it had so many different subplots to deal with and had to jump from scene to scene so abruptly, it feels pretty slow going. And honestly, I wish the fight between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow had ended sooner, because all the ominous references and cookie-cutter dialogue felt more boring than a fight between ninja ought to be. By now, it feels like maybe this art style isn't the best for the Transformers. Heavy shadows obscure a lot of potential detail, and in some cases, which character is which, and much of the time it looks like the entire island is encased in a giant smog dome or something. Next time, we see how this story concludes, who lives, who dies, and if any of this will make it on the History Channel. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.